One of the hot topics I see discussed is which archery retailers are reliable. This is a pretty big deal considering that you could be spending hundreds on your purchases. Literally everyone has had positive and negative experiences with specific archery stores. There's probably someone at your club who goes, "Oh, you should avoid blah blah archery supplies because they have terrible customer service." Or you might have someone who's waited 3 months to get a stabilizer or a bow stand. Rather than blacklist a bunch of otherwise reputable archery stores, I want to talk about the archery industry and the challenges faced by archery retailers. And this may enlighten you as a buyer on what to expect when dealing with the system. As a disclaimer, I don't work in the archery industry, nor do I have any sales or retail experience. This is purely based on what people have told me, as well as a reasonable amount of conjecture. What I'm trying to do here is to explain some of the complexities of buying and selling archery equipment. If you do have experience, please let me know your thoughts below. Let's open by talking about archery as a sport. Archery has an odd niche in that it's relatively a low popularity sport with low profile in the sporting scene. It has its appeal, but it definitely lacks the pull of a major spectator sport, and it isn't widely practiced in many countries. A lot of people do archery, but the fact is that you're unlikely to run into somebody else who does archery, compared to, say, Taekwondo. Something else about archery is that to do archery, you require very specific and specialized equipment. You need your bows, your arrows, and your other accessories for sport or for hunting. In a sense, it's similar to how golf requires a set of clubs. It's not an activity where you can simply grab your bow and go. So, one problem faced by archery stores is that archery does not have a mass market. There's a lot of equipment which needs to be procured and at great expense, but there aren't exactly that many people out there who'll be willing to go to a shop and buy things off the shelf. Another significant difficulty is that archery is very divisive. There are so many different styles of archery. There's that distinction between sport archery and bow hunting. There are modern and traditional shooters. There's recurve and compound. There are longbows and crossbows. Each of these styles have very specific and extensive equipment and accessories. For an archery store to be successful, they have to cater for all these needs. Therein lies the problem for a lot of archery stores. Most stores aren't specialized. They will have to cater for hunters and for target shooters. Otherwise, they will lose business. Some stores lean one way or the other and have an otherwise token selection. You've probably had that experience of looking for a recurve bow, but the store is predominantly compound focused. You may have been looking for an Olympic bow, but you find like 5 risers in an otherwise hunting dominated shop. If you're looking for traditional equipment, your options may be even more limited. Now, let's say I'm a target archer and I'm looking at buying a bow. I'm looking for a range of products which cover the budget spectrum. I would expect to see cheap entry-level equipment, mid-range gear, and high-end competitive equipment. So I might be looking for Sebastian Flute or Cartel or Samick on the cheap side, and at least some Hoyt and Win-N-Win options. Brand names aside, I may be looking at particular models. So I might be looking at the SF Forge Plus or the Premium, or perhaps a Hoyt GMX or HPX or Iron X, or anything from a Win-N-Win WinX to an Inno Max. And that's just the risers. Don't forget the range of limbs and stabilizers and sights. That's a lot of stuff the store has to stock, and that's just for target recurve. Take target compound bows. You see them lined up like motorcycles waiting to be sold, and with new models coming out every year. And don't forget, bows come in right-handed and left-handed models. What a headache! Half the customers may not be even interested in target gear, and are looking for camo clothing or scopes or broadheads or field equipment. That's a lot of stuff to display, and you've only got so much floor space and storage space. The same applies to the staff who work in these shops. Now you can expect staff to have a reasonable knowledge of archery in general, but realistically, most people only do one kind of archery. So for example, you may have to work with someone managing a store who is a compound shooter and therefore lacks the knowledge and skills to work with recurve equipment. Some people are purely competition shooters and they can't really advise on hunting equipment. From the buyer perspective, this can be frustrating at times. So what problems can you expect as an archery customer? Firstly, there might not be many options in terms of local stores. If you're fortunate, you may be based in a city that has a major archery vendor, but it's more likely that your local stores are small businesses with limited stock. You may have a general outdoor store that sells a small amount of archery equipment, but if you're looking for something specific, you may not find it there, especially if you're a target archer. Secondly, the stores may not stock items from particular companies. This is partly due to supply and demand, and partly due to whether or not the store has a partnership with these manufacturers. So you won't necessarily find big name brands like Hoyt and Win in some stores. Some stores exclusively sell Eastern arrows, while others will sell gold tips and carbon expresses. In fact, there are many manufacturers out there which produce quality equipment. The problem is that the archery store's customer base may have no demand for these products. An example of this would be Funded Archery Supplies, which recently closed down. And they were well known for, apart from the customer service, as the only store in Australia which stocked brands like Spigarelli and Uka. On the other hand, your average archery store seeking to make easier sales may only stock a select handful of commonly available products at each level. So, yes, you have your Hoyt Horizon and your Win Inno CXT and your Cartel Phantom, and that may be it. Stores will generally promote certain packages that include items they stock more of, and swap out items based on what's available, because it's easier to make sales this way. Oh, you're a beginner looking for a medium price kit? Oh, here's the Cartel Phantom bundle with SF limbs. Something higher end? Try the Hoyt GMX package. If you're looking at getting your first bow, it may be easier to look at getting these packages instead of putting everything together yourself. Thirdly, you'll come across the issue with back orders. Again, this is due to supply and demand. To be economical, stores will only order in equipment if there is enough demand. In other words, if enough people buy it or have it on order. Then they'll place an order for a shipment from that manufacturer when they do a stock take. For example, I might be looking for Eastern X10 arrows, but they might be out of this particular set, which means I'll have to wait until they do another batch order from Eastern. This could take 2 weeks, it could take 2 months. Doinka is a company that tends to have a reputation for infrequent orders. Doinka makes very high quality but very expensive stabilizers. They're a desired product, but stores probably don't have them on the shelf. Because of the manufacturing and shipping costs, the store will probably be reluctant to place a special order just for you. Often, you can request it to be done anyway if you are willing to pay for that shipping. Otherwise, you're stuck with having to wait with an undetermined delivery time, or you have to swap for a similar product. This can be annoying at times because the item you want may be a small, insignificant item like a bag or a bow stand, but the store happens to be out of stock and aren't placing an order with this particular manufacturer for a while. The bottom line is that while you may have had some bad experiences with certain archery stores, many of these problems happen everywhere and are reflective of the sport and industry in general. A larger retailer, such as Lancaster Archery, will probably have a larger variety of items in stock compared to your local archery shop, which may be the size of a fish and chip shop. If you're looking for a particular item, most stores will be happy to place the order for you. At the same time, however, if you know what you're looking for, it may be easier for you to shop online and explore different options with different retailers. Anyway, this is New Sensei. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.